Have you ever found yourself standing at a crossroads, looking back at the life you've lived and wondering, what's next? Not just what's next in terms of logistics, but what's next for your spirit. How do we navigate the chapters that feel a little quieter, maybe a touch lonelier than we ever imagined they would be? How do we age, not just gracefully, but with a fire in our bellies, with purpose, genuine joy, and that unshakable resilience that sees us through? Today, we're diving deep into that very question. This isn't just another chat about getting older. Oh no, this is about embracing the later seasons of life with guts, with heart, and with a renewed sense of meaning. I want you to meet someone truly special, Eleanor Harris. Eleanor is 65, and folks, she's walked the path. She's navigated the exhilarating highs and the gut-wrenching lows that often come with this stage of life. From the profound ache of losing her closest confidant to the daunting yet ultimately empowering challenge of rediscovering her own spark, her own reason for greeting the dawn. Eleanor's story, it's deeply personal, you'll feel that, but I guarantee it's also going to echo moments, fears, and hopes that resonate universally for anyone who's ever watched the years tick by and wondered how to make them truly count. Now, why should you stick with us for this entire journey today? Why commit this time? Because Eleanor's experience isn't just a story, it's a wellspring of practical earned wisdom. It's for anyone, and I mean anyone, looking to live their later years to the absolute fullest, no matter what curveballs life throws their way. You're going to learn how to forge new meaningful connections, even when it feels like your social circle has shrunk. You'll hear how she learned to make tough choices, the kind that keep you up at night with newfound confidence. And most importantly, you'll see how to embrace the often underrated beauty of independence while still keeping your heart wide open to new possibilities, new people, new adventures. Through Eleanor's eyes, through her candid sharing, you'll discover tangible strategies for handling life's unexpected detours, like grappling with the monumental decision of whether a senior living community is the right fit, or simply finding the courage to step out of your comfort zone. By the time we're through, you'll walk away with insights that will help you cherish the relationships that truly matter, stay active in mind and body, and take confident charge of your future, whether you're navigating your 60s, sailing through your 70s, or rocking your 80s and beyond. Eleanor's journey is a powerful testament to making every single moment count, no matter what life brings your way. It's about turning solitude into strength and quiet, into an opportunity for growth. So, settle in. If you haven't already, this would be a great time to hit that subscribe button and the little notification bell. That way, you won't miss out on future stories like Eleanor's. Your support, honestly, it means the world and helps us bring more of these conversations to light. And as we go, if Eleanor's story or parts of it really connect with you, if you feel that little nudge of recognition, I'd love for you to drop a yes in the comments below. It helps me know what resonates. And if something feels off, or if you have a different perspective, share that too. That's how we all learn and grow. And of course, if you find these lessons valuable, please give this video a thumbs up and share it. Spread that wisdom. All right. Are you ready? Let's step into Eleanor's world. Eleanor, I always had this picture-perfect image of retirement, like something out of a comforting movie. A time to finally exhale, to slow down from the hustle and bustle, and just savor the simple everyday pleasures after a lifetime of hard work. I was meticulous about it. I saved diligently, penny by penny, year after year. I'd daydream about long, leisurely walks by the lake, the water shimmering under the afternoon sun, maybe a picnic basket involved. Cozy evenings curled up in my favorite armchair with a stack of unread books, a warm cup of tea steaming beside me. Pure bliss, right? But life, well, it has this funny, often infuriating way of chucking your carefully laid plans right out the window, doesn't it? At 65, I found myself stepping into retirement a little sooner than I'd anticipated. My little bookstore, The Cozy Corner, my pride and joy for over 2 decades, the place where I knew every customer by name and their favorite authors. It had to close its doors. The economy shifted, online giants took over, and my little haven just couldn't keep up. Financially, thank goodness, I was okay. I'd always been the cautious type with money, a bit of a squirrel, always tucking away a little something for that rainy day for the future. So the bills could be paid, but there was something else, something profound that I couldn't have budgeted for: the quiet. Oh, that profound, echoing quiet. The stillness that settled into my days, not like a gentle blanket, but like a heavy, unyielding weight. There was a time when my life vibrated with the energy of family. My daughter Claire and my son Michael, they were my universe, my everything. Their laughter used to bounce off these walls. I can still hear the phantom echo of their footsteps racing down the hall, the thud of a dropped toy, the whispered secrets. Now, of course, they have their own families, their own wonderfully chaotic, bustling lives. And I am so incredibly proud of the adults they've become, the families they're raising. But if I'm being truly honest with myself and with you, there's a part of me, a big part, that aches for those days when our home was the epicenter of their world. Then about 3 years ago, the world tilted on its axis. I lost my dearest friend Helen, my rock, my partner in crime for everything from disastrous baking attempts to heartfelt, soul-bearing conversations over countless cups of coffee. It wasn't a long, drawn-out illness where you get to prepare to say your goodbyes. It was sudden, a shock that ripped through me and left this gaping void, a silence that Helen's laughter used to fill. And that particular silence, let me tell you, it seemed to grow louder, more insistent with each passing day. My children, bless their hearts, they're loving, they're kind, but they were understandably caught up in the whirlwind of their own lives. Claire shaping young minds as a dedicated teacher, juggling parent-teacher conferences and soccer mom duties. Michael pouring every ounce of his energy into his growing business traveling networking. Their visits, once a regular Sunday staple, became a little less frequent. A quick pop-in here, a rushed phone call there, and I found myself alone, truly alone, far more often than I ever cared to admit, even to myself. I remember this one particularly dreary, rainy afternoon, the kind where the sky just weeps. I was sitting in my living room, the silence so thick it felt like a physical presence, a weight pressing down on my chest. The walls, which once seemed to hold so many vibrant memories, so much laughter, now felt like they were closing in on me. I could hear the almost aggressive tick-tock of the grandfather clock in the hall, each tick marking another moment of solitude. The distant, mournful patter of rain against the window pane. But nothing else. No phone ringing, no footsteps, no friendly chatter. The loneliness. It wasn't just a fleeting emotion in my heart anymore. It had seeped into my bones, a constant dull ache that I just couldn't shake, no matter how many cups of tea I drank or how many old movies I tried to lose myself in. And as I sat there wrestling with this overwhelming feeling, trying to just push it away to be strong, the phone finally rang. My heart leaped. It was Claire, her voice as usual, a little rushed, a little breathless. "Mom, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, but I don't think I can make it over tonight. The kids have this unexpected school event, and I'm absolutely swamped with grading." "You okay though? Everything all right?" I felt that familiar pang, a sharp little jab of disappointment, but I swallowed it down hard. Claire had her life, her responsibilities. The last thing I wanted was to be a burden to add to her stress. So I forced a smile into my voice, the kind of smile you hope sounds convincing. "Oh, I'm perfectly fine, sweetheart. Don't you worry about me a bit," I said, maybe a little too brightly. "You go take care of things. I'll be here pottering around." We hung up, and the silence, it just rushed back in, heavier, more suffocating than before. I'd poured my entire life into building a sanctuary for my family, and now, with Helen gone, and my children understandably immersed in their own vibrant worlds, I was left to face this echoing quiet, utterly and completely alone. The very next day, my neighbor Susan popped by. She's around my age, a widow too, and we've always shared a pleasant, if somewhat surface-level camaraderie, mostly centered around our mutual love for gardening, comparing rose varieties, complaining about the aphids. But that day, as she settled into my kitchen, there was a different look in her eyes, a heaviness that I recognized. She sat across from me, cradling her teacup, and after a long moment of just looking around my quiet living room, she sighed a deep, knowing sigh. It's just you here now, isn't it, Eleanor?" She asked, her gaze sweeping the room, taking in the empty chairs, the silent corners. I just nodded the words, catching in my throat a lump forming. "Yeah," she said softly, her eyes meeting mine. "Same here. My kids are scattered across the country living their big, exciting lives, and it's just quiet. Too quiet sometimes." Her words, they didn't just resonate. They hit me like a physical blow, mirroring the profound emptiness that had become my constant companion. Then she leaned in a little, her voice dropping confidential, almost a whisper. "You ever really stop and think, Eleanor, what happens if we're truly properly alone? I mean really alone down the line?" That question, it sliced right through the fragile composure I was trying to maintain. The thought of being completely, utterly on my own with no one to share a silly laugh with, no one to call if I felt a bit off, no one to just be there. It filled me with this quiet, insidious dread. What would I do if I was left completely alone? The question just hung there in the air between us, heavy, ominous, and utterly unanswered. A few days later, Michael stopped by a whirlwind visit with my wonderful grandson Liam. He brought a batch of my favorite lemon cookies from that little bakery downtown, a sweet gesture maybe hoping to entice a longer, more relaxed visit. But as often happened, almost as soon as he walked in, his phone buzzed insistently in his pocket. He glanced at it, a frown creasing his brow. "Oh shoot, Mom, I'm so sorry." "That's a reminder. I've got to pick up Sarah from soccer practice across town. Like now," he said, already halfway to the door keys jangling. Liam, bless his innocent heart, gave me a quick, energetic hug, his small face full of love, but also that childhood distraction, eager to get to his next adventure. I managed to smile, trying to hide the familiar ache that tightened my chest. "No problem at all, honey. You go on. I'm perfectly okay," I said, though the words felt hollow like a recording. As their car pulled away from the curb, the sound of the engine fading into the distance, the house seemed to physically expand, to swallow me whole in its silence. And this time, the tears I'd been holding back for so long just came. Not dramatic sobs, just a quiet, steady stream that I couldn't stop. That night, lying in bed, staring up at the darkened ceiling, Susan's words echoed relentlessly in my mind. What do I do if I'm left alone? And I knew with a certainty that settled deep in my gut that I couldn't keep living like this, just drifting through these empty, echoing days, a ghost in my own life. Something had to change. I had to change. A week or so later, I met Susan for our now regular walk in the park. It had become a small lifeline. We sat on our usual bench watching families chasing toddlers, joggers puffing past with determined faces, teenagers laughing in groups, their lives a vibrant, energetic blur of motion. I turned to her, my voice a little unsteady, the words I'd been rehearsing feeling clumsy. "Susan," I began, "you were right about being alone. I haven't stopped thinking about it since you said it. How do we really truly manage at our age when things get harder?" She nodded slowly, her eyes kind, full of understanding. "I've been down that rabbit hole myself, Eleanor, more times than I can count," she said. "And I think the first most crucial thing is that we have to plan ahead, proactively. We can't just wait until a crisis hits, until it's too late and we're scrambling." Her voice was firm, but so gentle. "First things first," she continued, ticking points off on her fingers. "We absolutely need to be financially secure. Not rich necessarily, but secure enough to cover the essentials. Food bills, decent health care. So we're not constantly worried about making ends meet." I agreed wholeheartedly. I'd always been careful with money, as I said, but her words made me realize I needed a more concrete plan for the unexpected, those sudden, hefty medical bills, home repairs, the myriad of unknowns that tend to creep up as the years accumulate. Susan pressed on, her gaze steady. And then Eleanor. With no one living right here with us, it really is on us to take care of ourselves, to stay as active as we possibly can, physically and mentally, and crucially, to stay connected, to build our own support systems. Her words struck a deep chord. I'd spent so many years, decades, really laser-focused on my family, putting their needs, their dreams, their schedules before my own. It was what mothers did, what I wanted to do. But in that process, I'd inadvertently let my own life, my own connections wither on the vine. The realization hit me with the force of a physical blow. I was merely existing, not truly living. The loneliness wasn't just a feeling. It was actively wearing me down, eroding my spirit. And I knew with absolute clarity that I had to fight back. I had to make a change. So I started small, baby steps. Each morning, instead of lingering over a solitary cup of coffee, I forced myself to walk to the park, breathing in the fresh air, feeling the sun on my face, even on days when all I wanted was to pull the covers back over my head, just moving, feeling my lungs fill, watching the world wake up. It was grounding. In the evenings, I took a deep breath and joined a book club at the local community center. The thought initially terrified me, walking into a room full of strangers, but they shared my love for stories, for the magic of words. At first, it felt strange, almost artificial, like I was an actress playing a role. But slowly, painstakingly, I started to make new acquaintances, then tentative friends. My days, once so cavernous and empty, began to feel a little fuller, a little richer. There were conversations to look forward to, opinions to debate, even a shared laugh or two. Still, that quiet, insidious fear lingered, especially at night. Every evening as I lay in bed, the house settling around me, I'd wonder who will be there when I get sick. Really sick. Who will I call if I just need to hear a friendly voice to talk through a worry? The silence in those moments seemed to amplify those anxieties, making them loom larger, more menacing. I'd always prided myself on my independence, on being fine on my own. But now the prospect of facing the future with all its uncertainties completely alone felt overwhelming. I confided in Susan one afternoon over another cup of tea, my voice barely above a whisper, ashamed of my own vulnerability. "Susan, it's not that I feel I need someone to take care of me. Not in a practical sense," I confessed, staring into my cup. "But I just miss having someone to share the little moments with. You know, the silly things, the small victories, even the frustrations." She listened patiently, her eyes full of an understanding that only someone who's walked a similar path can offer. "Oh, Eleanor," she said softly, reaching across the table to pat my hand. I felt that exact same way for so long after my Arthur passed. It's a profound ache. But you're not betraying Helen or your past by wanting companionship, by wanting connection. You're just human. We're wired for it. Her words, so simple, so direct, eased a layer of guilt I hadn't even fully realized I was carrying. I wasn't trying to replace Helen. That would be impossible. I just wanted to feel connected again, to feel seen. And that's when I met Thomas. It was at the book club, actually. He was a widower a couple of years older than me, 68, with this wonderfully warm, rumbling laugh and an encyclopedic knowledge of classic novels that could rival any literature professor. We bonded initially over a spirited debate about Jane Austen. He was firmly Team Darcy. I was a Wentworth woman all the way. We started sharing stories, tentative at first, then more openly, about raising kids who'd now flown the nest and built their own lives. Thomas had this quiet strength about him, a gentle demeanor, and an incredible way of listening, truly listening, that made me feel seen, understood, valued. Our friendship grew organically easily, like a well-tended plant. Those initial post-book club coffee chats turned into longer walks in the park, reminiscing and debating. Shared dinners followed, sometimes at my place, sometimes at his. He wasn't Helen, of course not. No one could be. But he brought a different kind of light, a new warmth into my life. We'd cook together. He made a surprisingly good lasagna. We'd laugh until our sides hurt over old black and white movies, and we'd talk. We'd talk about everything and nothing, our fears about the future, our cherished memories of the past, our quiet dreams for whatever time we had left. My home, once so suffocatingly silent, began to hum with a gentle, comforting life again. The silence was still there in the background, but it was no longer menacing. It was just quiet. One particularly nasty week, I caught a dreadful cold, the kind that knocks you flat, makes your bones ache and your head pound. And Thomas, bless him, was there in an instant. He brought over homemade chicken soup, his mother's recipe, he said. He fussed over me, checked my temperature, made sure I was drinking enough fluids, and just sat with me reading his own book quietly in the armchair, his presence a steady, unspoken comfort. When Claire called, her voice laced with her usual loving concern, I was able to reassure her genuinely. "Thomas is here, sweetheart," I told her, a little surprised myself at how natural it sounded. "I'm okay. He's taking good care of me." I could hear the surprise and then the distinct relief in her voice. That night, after the fever had broken and I was feeling a bit more human, I realized just how much his companionship, his quiet care had come to mean to me. It wasn't about replacing what I'd lost. It was about building something new, something steady and warm and present. Thomas and I, we never put a label on our bond. We didn't need to. It was simply enough to share the days, to know that someone was there, someone who cared. But life, as it always does, had another surprise up its sleeve, another turn in the road. One crisp autumn afternoon, Thomas got a call. It was his daughter, who lived several states away. She was expecting her first child, his first grandchild, and she tearfully asked if he would consider moving closer to be a part of the baby's life to help out. When he told me, my heart just sank. I felt it physically drop, but I plastered on a smile, the bravest one I could muster. "Oh, Thomas, that's just wonderful news," I said, hoping my voice didn't betray the tremor I felt inside. "You'll be an absolutely amazing grandfather." His eyes, usually so full of gentle humor, were torn, conflicted. He took my hands. "Eleanor," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "I've come to love our time together more than I can say." His words were a bittersweet gift, a precious memory I'd hoard. But I knew we both knew he had to go. Family, especially new grandbabies, came first. Of course they did. So a few weeks later, I found myself driving him to the train station. We didn't say much on the way. What was there to say? My heart felt impossibly heavy, a confusing mix of love for him, sadness for me, and genuine happiness for his new adventure. As the train pulled away from the platform, gaining speed, his wave from the window getting smaller and smaller, the silence returned. But this time, it felt sharper, more acute than before. My house, which had briefly hummed with shared laughter and quiet companionship, felt cavernously empty once more. And I found myself grappling yet again with a depth of solitude I thought I'd hoped I'd finally conquered. The loneliness after Thomas left was hard, really hard, like a bruise that wouldn't fade. But I was determined. I absolutely refused to let it define me, to let it pull me back under. I'd come too far. So I clung to my routine like a lifeline, those morning walks, now a non-negotiable part of my day, rain or shine. The book club, even though his empty chair was a constant, poignant reminder. My gardening side by side with Susan, our hands in the soil, a quiet, shared therapy. But Thomas's absence had left a tangible void, a specific kind of quiet that was different from the quiet before him. My children, Claire and Michael, they checked in, bless them, sweet, dutiful calls. "You doing okay, Mom? Need anything? but their lives were so full, so demanding, and I was fiercely determined not to lean on them too heavily, not to become that stereotypical lonely mother guilt-tripping her busy kids. They had their own paths to walk. Then, one afternoon at the book club, as we were packing up our books and dog-eared notes, I overheard a snippet of conversation between two other members, a couple of ladies I didn't know very well. They were talking about a friend who had recently moved into a senior living community nearby. "She's absolutely thriving," one said. "Got a whole new lease on life, so many activities, people around all the time." It was just a casual remark, not meant for my ears, but it sparked something in me, a tiny flicker of possibility. Maybe this was a way to find that consistent connection, that sense of belonging, to genuinely ease the pervasive solitude without relying on one single person who might, for perfectly valid reasons, leave. The idea took root. I mulled it over for days, turning it this way and that in my mind. Could I do it? Leave the home I'd lived in for over 30 years, the home where I'd raised my children? It felt monumental. Finally, I gathered my courage and called Claire, my stomach churning with nerves, but my voice surprisingly steady. "Honey," I began, "I've been doing some thinking, a lot of thinking actually, and I'm considering looking into a senior living community." There was a long loaded pause on the other end of the line. I could almost hear her processing it. "Mom," she finally said, her voice tinged with surprise and maybe a little concern. Are you sure? Won't it feel, I don't know, impersonal, institutional?" I took a deep breath, grounding myself. "It's not about that, Claire," I tried to explain. "It's not about giving up or needing to be taken care of. It's about actively choosing a place where I'm not so isolated, where I can live with purpose, with people around, with opportunities to engage. It's about building a different kind of future for myself." A few days later, Michael and Claire came over, their faces etched with loving concern. We sat around my kitchen table, the one that had seen countless family meals and homework sessions. "We get that it's been hard, Mom, especially since Thomas left," Michael said gently, his hand covering mine. "But what if you feel even more isolated there, surrounded by strangers? What if it's not what you hope?" I appreciated their worry, I truly did. It came from a place of love. But I stood firm, my resolve solidifying with each word I spoke. "I've thought this through, really I have. I've read brochures, I've looked online. I need a place where I can thrive, not just exist. Where I'm not waiting for the phone to ring or for a visit. You both have your own wonderful, busy lives, and that's as it should be. I don't want to be a burden, and more importantly, I don't want to feel like one." After a long contemplative silence, they exchanged a look, and then Claire nodded slowly. "Okay, Mom," she said, her voice soft but supportive. "If this is truly what you want, if you've really considered it, then we'll support you 100%. But she added, a small smile playing on her lips, "We'll be visiting all the time. You won't get rid of us that easily." Their words, their acceptance, it was like a warm hug. A tangible weight I hadn't even realized I was carrying lifted from my shoulders. 3 months later, after countless tours, checklists, and a fair bit of emotional packing, I moved into a lovely senior living community just on the outskirts of town. It wasn't a sterile hospital-like place at all. It was vibrant with beautifully tended gardens, bright common rooms, art classes in full swing, the clatter of mahjong tiles, and most importantly, people my age. People with stories who shared my interests, who were also looking for connection. On my very first day, as I was nervously trying to figure out how the fancy coffee machine worked in the dining hall, I met Grace. She was a resident, probably in her late 70s, with a bright, mischievous smile and a welcoming energy that just enveloped you. She took me under her wing, immediately gave me an impromptu tour of the grounds, pointing out the best sunny spots for reading and the schedule for the water aerobics class. She introduced me to other residents, her introductions full of warmth and anecdotes. And slowly, gradually, over those first few weeks, I started to feel at home, genuinely at home. That first night, lying in my new, slightly unfamiliar bed, I looked out at the stars, different from the ones I saw from my old bedroom window, but just as beautiful. And I felt a quiet, profound peace settle over me. This wasn't the life I'd meticulously planned all those years ago, not by a long shot. But it was a new chapter, a different kind of chapter, and it felt filled with possibility. 6 months flew by. I'd found my rhythm. I surprised myself by joining a painting class, something I'd always wanted to try but never had the nerve. I learned to play bridge badly at first, but with a lot of laughter. I made friends, real friends, women, and a few good men who felt like a new kind of family. The crushing, debilitating loneliness I'd once feared, the kind that gnawed at my insides, it was gone, replaced by a sense of community, of belonging, of shared days and easy companionship. Claire and Michael still called regularly, their voices initially still carrying that hint of worry, checking if I was truly adjusting, if I was really okay. But I could honestly, joyfully reassure them. I'm happy here, guys, truly, I'd say. I've got my painting pals, my bridge disasters dinner companions every night if I want them. I'm not alone anymore. They couldn't fully grasp the depth of the peace. I'd found the relief of not having to face another long, silent evening by myself. How could they from their bustling, family-filled lives? But I was so grateful for their continued love and support. Then, one ordinary Tuesday morning, I got a call that shattered my newfound peace. It was Susan, my old neighbor, her voice trembling, cracking. Eleanor, it's Grace. She had a fall, a bad one. She's in the hospital. My heart just stopped. Cold. Grace. My vibrant, laughing Grace, who'd become such a dear, indispensable friend, her easy laughter, a constant joyful soundtrack to my days in the community. I rushed to the hospital, my mind a chaotic blur of fear and disbelief. When I arrived breathless, Claire was already there, her face pale and drawn. She'd heard through the community grapevine and come straight away. The doctors are doing everything they can. Mom, she said, her voice low, her arm going around my shoulders, but they said it's serious. Those words, it's serious. They hit me like a physical wave, knocking the air from my lungs. I sat by Grace's bed for hours, holding her frail, cool hand, her usually animated face so terribly still and pale against the white hospital pillows. Please, Grace, I whispered, tears streaming down my face, blurring my vision. Please, you've got to pull through. We have another disastrous bridge game scheduled for Thursday, remember? For a fleeting, hopeful moment, her eyelids fluttered, and I swear she squeezed my hand ever so weakly. Keep living, Eleanor, she whispered, her voice a mere breath. Really live. Then her eyes closed, and just like that, she was gone. The grief was overwhelming, a thick, suffocating fog that clouded everything. Grace's loss was a brutal reminder of how fragile life is, how quickly everything can change, how precious these connections are. The days that followed were a blur of sympathy cards, hushed condolences, and an aching emptiness where Grace's vibrant presence used to be. My new friends at the community, they were wonderful, rallying around me, offering comfort, sharing their own stories of loss. But this pain, it felt uniquely mine. Claire and Michael visited often, bringing my grandchildren, hoping their youthful energy, their innocent questions, would lift my spirits. I smiled for them, I went through the motions, but inside, I felt like I was breaking all over again. One evening, Claire sat with me in my small apartment, the setting sun casting long shadows. Her voice was soft, full of a wisdom beyond her years. Mom, she said gently, Grace wouldn't want you to stay this sad. She wouldn't want her passing to dim your light. I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. I know, Claire, I know, I finally managed the words, choked. But it's just so hard. Losing someone you've come to love. It's like losing another piece of yourself, a piece you didn't even know was missing until it was filled and then gone again. Over time, as it does, the sharpest edges of grief began to soften, though the ache, the missing her, never fully left. It became a part of me, a tender spot. One sunny afternoon, months later, I was walking through the community garden, a place Grace and I had often sat admiring the roses. I saw a new resident, an older gentleman named Robert, sitting alone on a bench, his shoulders slumped, his eyes carrying that same quiet, unmistakable sorrow I'd felt so acutely when I first arrived and again after Grace. I hesitated for only a moment. Then, drawing on a strength I wasn't sure I possessed, a strength perhaps Grace herself had instilled in me, I approached him. I placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "New here?" I asked softly. He looked up, startled, then gave a small, hesitant nod. "It can be a bit overwhelming at first," I said, offering a small, understanding smile. "Want to walk with me for a bit? I can show you where they hide the good cookies." He looked at me, a flicker of something, surprise, relief, in his eyes, and then he nodded again, a little more firmly this time. And so we strolled in companionable silence for a while, a shared, unspoken understanding passing between us. That night, as I got ready for bed, I thought of Grace. Her infectious laughter, her boundless kindness, her final whispered words. They weren't just memories anymore, they were a part of me now, a gentle hand guiding me forward, urging me to keep connecting, to keep living. Thank you for staying with us through Eleanor's deeply moving journey. If you're still here, still reflecting, perhaps you could share a single word in the comments that describes how Eleanor's story makes you feel. It's a way for us to connect over these shared emotions. Grace's passing, as heartbreaking as it was, taught Eleanor, and I hope us too, a profound and timeless lesson. Life, in its very essence, is fleeting. It's unpredictable. But the connections we forge, the love we share, those bonds endure. They weave themselves into the very fabric of our lives, becoming indelible threads. Every relationship, whether it lasts a lifetime like her friendship with Helen, a cherished season like her time with Thomas, or a precious chapter like her bond with Grace, fills our hearts with meaning, with richness, with a depth we wouldn't have otherwise known. Aging, as Eleanor discovered, isn't just about the passage of time, the accumulation of wrinkles, or the slowing of pace. It's about growing wiser, yes, but also stronger in spirit and more profoundly open to life's myriad possibilities, even amidst its sorrows. As the years pass, she learned, and we can learn, to truly cherish the small, seemingly insignificant moments, a shared, unexpected laugh with a new acquaintance like Robert, the quiet comfort of a walk in nature, the simple power of a kind word offered or received. These are the anchors, the things that keep us grounded when the world around us feels unsteady, when loss revisits. The great poet, the incomparable Maya Angelou, once said, "You may not control all the events that happen to you, but you can decide not to be reduced by them." And isn't that the truth at the heart of Eleanor's story? Aging inevitably brings challenges. Loss is a recurring theme, change is constant, and solitude can be a formidable foe. But as Eleanor's journey so beautifully illustrates, it also brings an incredible, often underestimated strength. You learn to rely on yourself in new ways. You learn to find a quiet peace, even a profound richness in your own company. Those quiet moments, once daunting and filled with dread, can transform into sacred spaces. Opportunities to listen to your own heart, to understand your own needs, to dream new dreams. Life's disappointments, its heartaches, they teach us resilience. They carve pathways to empathy. And life's joys, however fleeting they may seem, remind us to keep our hearts open, to keep hoping, to keep reaching out, to keep connecting. So as we draw this to a close, I invite you to take a moment for reflection. What specific lesson, what insight from Eleanor's story truly resonated with you today? Maybe it's the critical importance of proactively building new friendships, even when it feels daunting. Perhaps it's the reminder to stay active, not just physically, but mentally and socially. Or maybe it's the courage it takes to embrace profound change, like moving to a new environment, even when fear whispers doubts. I'd be so grateful if you'd share one thing you've learned or been reminded of in the comments below, and perhaps more importantly, how you might carry that insight forward into your own life, into your own journey. Your thoughts, your reflections, they have power. They could be the very spark that inspires someone else who's listening today, someone who might be facing their own quiet battles. If this story, if Eleanor's courage and wisdom touched you today, please do give this video a thumbs up, share it with someone you think might benefit from hearing it. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing for more stories that explore the richness and complexity of the human experience. Thank you truly for watching, for listening, and for being part of this conversation. I'll look forward to seeing you in the next one.